They say suffering is meaningless, that childhood pain is just random misfortune. But what if the suffering you endured as a child wasn't just a coincidence? What if it was an initiation? Some souls are forged in fire. Some are thrown into darkness, not to be broken, but to be transformed. If you've ever felt like the pain you went through was unfair, like you were born into a world that was too harsh, too unforgiving, you need to hear this. Because the reason chosen ones suffer the most is a truth that has been hidden for centuries. Right now, millions are trapped in cycles of pain, unable to understand why their early lives were marked by suffering. But what they don't realize is that trauma isn't just something to escape, it's something that awakens. Throughout history, the most powerful spiritual leaders, visionaries, and healers all shared one thing in common: suffering. Their childhoods were not kind. They endured isolation, betrayal, loss, not because they were cursed, but because they were being prepared. There is an ancient spiritual law that they don't want you to know. The souls who are meant to lead, to awaken, to heal, are first put through darkness so they can master the light. They are tested, broken, stripped of illusions, so that when they rise unshakable. But not everyone makes it through. Some stay trapped in their wounds. Some never see the truth. And that is the difference between those who remain in suffering and those who transcend it. If you've ever wondered why your childhood was harder than others, why you were given more pain than joy, more battles than peace, then you are about to understand something that will change how you see your past forever. Because once you realize the reason behind your suffering, you will never look at yourself the same way again. The world is full of people who will tell you to move on, to forget, to bury your past. But they do not understand. The pain you went through was not just something to survive. It was a gift in disguise. Most will never see it that way. Most will stay bitter, lost, or broken by what happened to them. But those who see through the illusion, those who understand that suffering is an initiation, those are the ones who step into their true power. Think about it. Why do the most intelligent, the most spiritually gifted, the most insightful people often have the hardest childhoods? Why does life seem to break them before they even begin? It's because they are meant for something greater. And to become who they were always meant to be, they must first be shattered. Every chosen one goes through a period of isolation, a time when they feel like they don't belong, like they are different from everyone around them. This is not an accident. This is part of the process. You were never meant to fit in, because your purpose was never to be like everyone else. The suffering you endured as a child disconnected you from the illusions that most people live by. It forced you to see beyond the surface. It gave you depth, wisdom, and awareness that others simply do not have. But the system does not want you to know this. It does not want you to see your suffering as anything other than pain, because if you ever understood the truth, if you ever realized that your trauma was meant to awaken you, you would become unstoppable. You would stop seeking validation. Stop waiting for healing to come from the outside. Stop believing that you are broken, because you are not broken. You are being forged. Every hardship, every betrayal, every moment of pain was shaping you into the person you were always meant to be. But here's the truth that most people cannot accept. Suffering alone does not make you powerful. Many people go through pain, but only a few rise from it. Some stay trapped in the past, replaying their pain, never seeing the higher purpose behind it. Others choose to transmute their suffering into wisdom, into strength, into purpose. And that is the real test. Not whether you can endure suffering, but whether you can transform it. Look at history. The greatest spiritual teachers, the strongest warriors, the most resilient leaders, they all endured darkness before they stepped into their light. They lost everything before they gained anything. They faced their worst fears, their deepest wounds, and instead of letting it destroy them, they let it forge them. They became unbreakable. The system will tell you to numb your pain, to ignore it, to push it away. But that is how they keep you weak, because pain is not meant to be buried, it is meant to be understood. And once you understand it, once you look at your trauma and realize it was shaping you all along, you will begin to wake up. But most people don't want to wake up. Most people stay asleep, trapped in resentment, in anger, in the belief that they were victims of their past, and that is why most people never rise. This is where you have a choice. Do you let your past define you? Do you let the wounds of your childhood keep you in pain? Or do you choose to see through the illusion? Do you take the suffering that was meant to break you and use it as fuel to build something greater? Because that is what chosen ones do. They don't just survive, they transcend. They take everything that was meant to destroy them and turn it into something no one can take away. Wisdom, strength, purpose. And once you reach that level, nothing can touch you. No manipulation, no illusion, no force in this world can control you anymore. Because you will have mastered what most people fear. The ability to take pain and turn it into power. This is why chosen ones suffer more childhood trauma, not because they are weak, but because they were always meant to be strong. Not because they were cursed, but because they were meant to rise. Not because they were abandoned, but because they were meant to find their own way. Most people will never understand this. They will continue to believe that suffering is meaningless, that trauma is just pain, that their past was nothing more than a burden. But you know better now. You see the truth. The only question left is, what will you do with it? Pain is not random. Trauma is not meaningless. Everything you endured as a child, the loneliness, the fear, the feeling of being an outsider, was not just suffering. It was a refining fire, burning away everything that was not meant for you. Every great soul, every leader, every enlightened mind that has ever walked this earth has been tested by suffering, not because the universe is cruel, but because only those who survive the fire are strong enough to carry the truth. This is why chosen ones suffer more childhood trauma than others. While some live easy, comfortable lives, you were thrown into chaos from the beginning. Your pain was never a punishment, it was a preparation. Think about this. When you were a child, you were forced to see things most people never notice. You felt things more deeply than others. You could sense energy, emotions, and unspoken truths before you even understood what they meant. This was not an accident. This was not a flaw. This was your gift beginning to awaken. But here's the thing about gifts. They don't come without sacrifice. The reason you suffered more than others is because you were meant to see beyond the illusion. You were never meant to be like everyone else. The isolation, the betrayal, the pain, these were all designed to separate you from the masses, to make sure you would never be comfortable in a system built on lies. Look around you. The world is full of people who never question, never seek, never challenge the reality they were given. They follow the script, doing what they are told, thinking what they are taught to think, and they live comfortably in that illusion. But you never had that luxury. Even as a child, you felt the weight of the world differently. You saw through false smiles. You sensed the hidden pain in others. You understood things before anyone explained them to you. And that is why you were tested so early. Because if you were ever going to step into your power, you had to know pain. You had to experience suffering firsthand. You had to be forced into solitude, into silence, into deep contemplation, so that you could understand the world in a way that no one else could. Most people run from pain. They hide from it, bury it, pretend it never happened. But you don't have that option. If you are here, if you are listening to this, then something inside you already knows that pain is not something to escape. It is something to master. The system doesn't want you to know this. It wants you to believe that suffering is pointless, that childhood trauma is just an unfortunate accident of life. But what if that is the greatest lie ever told? What if suffering is a mechanism of transformation? What if the reason chosen ones suffer more is because they were never meant to remain ordinary? The truth is, you were never supposed to be like everyone else, and deep down, you always knew it. Even as a child, you felt different, like you didn't belong, like the world around you wasn't quite real, and the more pain you endured, the more disconnected you felt. But that disconnection wasn't a mistake. It was a protection. Because chosen ones cannot awaken if they are too attached to the illusion. They must be broken away from it. They must be forced to see beyond the surface. and nothing does that faster than suffering. Pain is a great teacher. It strips away the false, the shallow, the meaningless. It reveals what is real. And for those who are strong enough to endure it, it unlocks something even more powerful. Clarity. The ability to see people for who they truly are. The ability to recognize energy, to sense deception, to feel the emotions others try to hide. Most people never develop these gifts. They live their entire lives unaware, blind to the deeper forces at work. But those who have suffered, they see everything. They can walk into a room and instantly feel the energy shift. They can sense when someone is lying even if they have no proof. They can read between the lines, understand what is not being said. These are not just survival instincts. These are the marks of an awakened soul, a soul that has been forged through suffering, tested by fire, and forced to develop skills that most people will never even comprehend. But here's where it gets difficult. Not everyone who suffers becomes stronger. Some break under the weight of their past. Some remain trapped in their wounds, replaying their pain over and over again, never realizing that they have the power to transmute it into something greater. This is the difference between those who stay victims and those who become warriors. And that is the choice you must make. Will you allow your past to define you? Will you carry your suffering like a burden, or will you use it as fuel to become something greater? Because there is another secret about suffering that they don't want you to know. The moment you stop seeing yourself as a victim is the moment you become dangerous. The world is full of broken people. People who never healed, never questioned, never saw the bigger picture, and those in power, they depend on this. They depend on people staying stuck in their trauma, staying small, staying lost. Because healed people do not obey. Healed people do not fit into the system. Healed people do not live in fear. And that is why chosen ones are given more suffering than others. Because if they ever wake up, if they ever realize the truth of who they are, they will no longer be controlled. And that is what they fear the most. Your suffering was never about breaking you. It was about awakening you. But only if you let it. You have two choices. You can remain bitter, angry, and resentful about your past, blaming life for what it took from you. Or you can realize that your suffering was a gift, a preparation, a path designed to make you unbreakable. Most people will never make this choice. They will continue to see their pain as a curse instead of a lesson. They will carry their wounds like chains instead of using them as tools. But you already feel the truth. That's why you're here. That's why you've made it this far. Because deep down you know you were meant for something greater. And the moment you embrace that truth, the moment you stop running from your past and start using it as fuel, everything changes. Pain is not the end of your story. It is the beginning of your transformation. The only question is, are you ready to rise? Suffering is not the end. It is the beginning. It is the first step in an ancient process, one that has existed long before you were born, long before this world took its current form. It is an initiation, a sacred transformation that turns the ordinary into the extraordinary, the lost into the awakened, the wounded into the wise. But here's what they don't tell you. Not everyone survives the initiation. Look at history. Every great leader, every enlightened teacher, every true revolutionary has walked through the fire of suffering. They were tested, broken, abandoned, betrayed. They were given the kind of pain that could have destroyed them, but instead, they used it. They became something greater because of it. This is the pattern, this is the process, and you are in it right now. Most people live their entire lives asleep. They follow the path that was given to them, never questioning, never deviating, never realizing that the world they live in is an illusion. But those who are chosen, those who are meant for more, do not get that luxury. Your childhood trauma was not just pain, it was the breaking of the illusion. It was the moment the universe separated you from the masses, pulling you out of the dream, forcing you to see the world for what it really is. Think about it. Why do so many spiritual leaders and visionaries experience deep suffering early in life? Because suffering forces introspection. It forces awakening. It pushes you to search for meaning in a way that comfort never could. The world is full of distractions, designed to keep people blind. But when you are thrown into pain, real pain, something inside you shifts. You begin to see patterns. You begin to understand things that others cannot. You realize that the system does not exist to make people happy. It exists to keep them controlled. You realize that love is often conditional, that people lie, that the world is not as kind as they told you it was. And while this realization is painful, it is also the first step to becoming unbreakable. Because once you see the truth, you can never go back. That is why your suffering was necessary. Not because the universe wanted you to suffer, but because it needed you to wake up. But awakening is only the beginning. Once the illusion is broken, once you realize that your pain was not random, you step into the next phase of the initiation. This is the phase where you must decide, what will you do with the truth? Because here is where most people fail. Some people wake up and become bitter. They become consumed by resentment, by anger, by the idea that life has been unfair to them. They see their suffering, but they refuse to see beyond it. Others wake up and become afraid. They realize the depth of the illusion, the darkness in the world, and instead of using that knowledge to empower themselves, they shrink back. They stay small, pretending they never saw what they saw. And then there are those who pass the test. These are the ones who take their suffering and transmute it into something greater. They do not allow their pain to make them weak. They allow it to forge them into something unstoppable. These are the people who become healers, teachers, warriors, guides. These are the people who stand at the edge of darkness and refuse to fall. And this is the choice you must make. Will you let your past define you? Will you stay stuck in your wounds, trapped by your suffering, or will you rise from it? Because the truth is, your suffering has given you something that most people do not have: wisdom. You see, suffering strips away the unnecessary. It forces you to go deep within yourself, to question, to search, to understand. And in doing so, it gives you a level of awareness that most people will never reach. That is why you feel different. That is why you have always felt separate. Because you were never meant to live a normal life. The spiritual initiation is not easy. It is painful. It is isolating. It pushes you to the edge of yourself, forcing you to let go of everything you thought you knew. But that is the only way to become something greater. Look at the stories of ancient wisdom. The Buddha left his palace and wandered into suffering before he reached enlightenment. Jesus was tested in the desert before he stepped into his divine mission. Shamans, mystics, and prophets throughout history have all faced darkness before they could wield light. Why? Because only those who have faced the void can guide others through it. This is what you were being prepared for. This is why your suffering was greater than others, because your purpose is greater than others. But here's the final truth of the initiation. No one will save you. No one is coming to make your healing easier. No one is coming to give you the answers. You must walk this path alone, and that is why it is so hard. Because those who are chosen do not get shortcuts. They do not get handouts. They do not get an easy way through. They must step into their power by choice. This is what separates those who rise from those who remain lost. Those who rise understand that their suffering was not a curse but a gift. A painful, brutal, difficult gift, but a gift nonetheless. Because suffering is what gave you your vision. Suffering is what gave you your depth. Suffering is what made you see the truth while others remain blind. And now, you stand at the crossroads. You can continue carrying your past like a burden, weighed down by everything you have been through. Or you can turn your suffering into your power. You can take every moment of pain, every tear, every betrayal, every wound, and use it to become the version of yourself that no one can break. The version of yourself that sees through every lie, every illusion, every deception. The version of yourself that knows the truth and refuses to be controlled by it. That is the final test, because those who pass it become unstoppable, and the world is afraid of people like that. The system depends on people staying lost in their wounds. It needs them to be broken, to be seeking, to be waiting for someone to save them. but you know better now. You were never meant to stay broken. You were never meant to stay asleep. You were never meant to live an ordinary life. Your suffering was the price of your awakening, and now the choice is yours. Will you let it destroy you, or will you let it make you unbreakable? There comes a moment in every chosen one's journey when they must make a choice. This is the moment where pain either destroys you or awakens you. Most people do not pass this test. They stay trapped in the past, replaying their suffering like a song they can't turn off. They become prisoners of their wounds, mistaking their trauma for their identity. But that is not your destiny. You were never meant to stay in the pain. You were meant to rise from it. But here's the truth no one tells you. Rising is not automatic. You do not wake up one day magically healed. You do not suddenly feel free from the weight of what you endured. The world does not give you closure. The people who hurt you will not apologize. The past will never rewrite itself. And that is why the transformation must happen within you. The moment you stop waiting for healing to come from the outside, the moment you stop hoping that someone or something will fix what was broken, you reclaim your power, because no one is coming to save you. Not because you are unworthy, not because you are unloved, but because you were never meant to be saved. You were meant to awaken, and the ones who awaken do not ask for permission to heal, they decide. Right now, you stand at a crossroads. You can let your past define you. You can stay in the cycle of resentment, anger, and bitterness. You can carry your suffering like a badge of honor, using it as proof that life has been unfair to you. Or you can use it as fuel, because here is the truth about pain. It is energy, and energy is meant to be transformed. Think of a fire. It can burn and destroy, or it can forge and strengthen. The same fire that consumes a weak structure is the fire that tempers steel into a weapon. Your pain is your fire. You can let it consume you, or you can let it forge you into something unbreakable. And that is what the transformation choice is all about. It is the moment you stop seeing yourself as a victim and start seeing yourself as a warrior. Most people stay in victimhood because it is comfortable. Even though suffering hurts, it is familiar. The pain becomes part of their identity. They tell themselves, "This is just who I am. I was hurt and now I will always be this way." But that is not the truth. The real truth is that you are not your pain. You are what you choose to do with it. And chosen ones, the ones who pass the initiation, they make a different choice. They do not deny their past. They do not pretend it didn't happen. But they rewrite its meaning. They take what was meant to break them and they turn it into power. They stop saying, "Why did this happen to me?" and they start saying, "What did this teach me?" Because suffering, if used correctly, is the greatest teacher. Think about it. Because of your pain, you see through illusions. You recognize manipulation. You understand human nature. Because of your struggles, you have built resilience, strength, and wisdom that others will never have. Because of your loneliness, you have developed depth, introspection, and a connection to the universe that most people spend their entire lives searching for. And because of your suffering, you have become unshakable. This is why chosen ones must endure more than others. Not because they are cursed, but because they are being prepared. Prepared to lead, prepared to teach, prepared to show others the way out of the darkness. Because here is the final truth. Your pain was never just about you. It was always about who you are meant to help. You see, transformation is not just about personal healing. It is about transmuting pain into something greater. The strongest healers were once the most wounded. The greatest teachers were once the most lost. The most powerful leaders were once the most broken. They did not reach their purpose in spite of their suffering. They reached it because of it. And now, so can you. This is your moment. You can continue carrying your pain like a burden, allowing it to hold you back. Or you can take that pain and turn it into your superpower. You can become the one who breaks generational cycles. You can become the one who turns wounds into wisdom. You can become the one who guides others out of their own suffering. That is what chosen ones do. They take everything that was meant to destroy them and they use it to build something greater. And once you make this decision, once you commit to transforming your pain, something incredible happens. You become free. Free from the illusions, free from the past, free from the idea that you are still that wounded child, trapped in a story you did not choose. Because now, you are choosing something different. You are choosing to rise. Most people will never make this choice. They will stay stuck, forever defined by what was done to them. But you are not most people. And you know, now, there is no going back. There is only forward. And as you move forward, as you step into your power, remember this. Your past does not define you. Your pain does not define you. What you choose to do with it defines you. And you are about to become something that no pain, no trauma, no past experience can ever break again, because you have made the transformation choice. And that changes everything. You were never meant to stay broken. Every wound you endured, every betrayal, every dark moment was not just suffering. It was shaping you. And now, as you step beyond your past, you will begin to notice something profound. Your pain did not just make you stronger. It made you gifted, because suffering does something that nothing else can do. It forces you to go beyond the surface. It forces you to develop awareness, to read between the lines, to sense what others cannot. And this is why chosen ones always develop spiritual gifts. The world will tell you that these abilities are coincidences, that your intuition is just imagination, that your ability to sense energy is just overthinking. But you know better. You know that your suffering gave you a vision that others do not have. Because of your pain, you can walk into a room and immediately feel the energy shift. Because of your trauma, you can tell when someone is lying, even when they don't know they're lying. Because of your experiences, you can see patterns, connections, and deeper truths that most people never recognize. This is not an accident. This is what happens when a soul survives the fire of suffering. Because pain opens the door to something most people spend their entire lives ignoring. Intuition. When you were younger, you felt things that others didn't. You could sense danger before it arrived. You could feel the emotions of others as if they were your own. You knew things without being told. And that is because your suffering forced you to develop a deeper connection to reality. Most people lived their lives blind, disconnected, unaware of the energies that shape the world around them. But you were thrown into the storm early. You had no choice but to learn how to read people, to sense shifts, to understand what was not being said, because your survival depended on it. And now, what was once a defense mechanism has become a spiritual gift. The ability to feel deeply, the ability to understand people on a level beyond words, the ability to see through deception, manipulation, and illusion. And if you choose to develop these gifts, if you choose to embrace them rather than ignore them, you will unlock a power that most will never know. Because the world does not belong to those who see only with their eyes. It belongs to those who see with their soul. But here is where many chosen ones get stuck. They feel their gifts, but they are afraid of them. They sense the energy shifts, but they convince themselves it's just overthinking. They recognize the patterns, but they doubt themselves. They see the truth, but they pretend they don't, because they have been conditioned to believe that their gifts make them strange, different, too much. But that is the final illusion. You are not too much. You were never too much. The world is simply too small for the depth of your vision. And now you have a choice. Do you suppress your gifts? Pretend you do not see what you see? Or do you step fully into your power? Because once you embrace your gifts, once you trust them, you become something that cannot be deceived. And that is when the final transformation begins. Because healing is not just about moving on. Healing is about transmuting pain into power. Every great soul, every leader, every enlightened mind in history has mastered this process. They did not escape their suffering. They turned it into something greater. This is the secret of true healing. It is not about forgetting the past. It is about using the past as fuel to become unstoppable. Pain is raw energy, and energy is meant to be transformed. You can turn suffering into wisdom. You can turn loneliness into self-mastery. You can turn betrayal into unshakable clarity. You can turn wounds into the very thing that makes you powerful. This is what chosen ones do. They take everything that was meant to destroy them and they use it to build something unbreakable. And once you understand this, you will never see your past the same way again. Because every painful moment, every loss, every heartbreak, it was all shaping you, and now you are no longer controlled by it. You are the master of it. The system wants you to believe that healing means going back to normal. But chosen ones do not go back to normal. They rise into something greater than they ever imagined. Because once you transmute pain into power, nothing can stop you. No manipulation can break you. No illusion can fool you. No force in this world can pull you back into the darkness. Because you see the truth now, and that is the final step in your journey. Your past is no longer your prison. It is your foundation. And from here you will build something that no trauma, no suffering, no external force can ever take away. Your purpose. Because that is what suffering was leading you toward all along. The moment where you realized that you were never a victim. You were always being prepared. Prepared to lead, prepared to heal, prepared to show others the way out. And now, the final question remains. What will you do with this power? Because the world is full of people who are still trapped in their wounds. People who still believe their suffering was meaningless. People who have not yet seen the truth. And now that you have a responsibility. Because healing yourself was never the final step. The real purpose, the real transformation, comes when you use your story to help others rise. Because that is what chosen ones do. They do not just escape the darkness. They become the light.